Good afternoon to you. Mark Sara with HurricaneTrack here, Monday now, November the 18th, 2024. Great news, and stating the obvious, hurricane season almost over. We've got 12 days left on the calendar for the hurricane season, and it'll all be done. Now, we could certainly get something that happens in December out over the warm Atlantic, those rogue systems that we sometimes see, but for all intents and purposes, hurricane season is almost over. So today's update, a little bit of a recap. I'm going to do a much more thorough one on November 30th, and that'll include some highlights and some thoughts about our field work this year, a much longer update than what we're doing right here. And hopefully I'm going to be able to schedule a long-form podcast interview type thing with Dr. Phil Klotzbach at some point over the coming weeks to just talk about this season, the challenges of it, and then where we are with seasonal forecasting and just understanding what's going on in the Atlantic basin, which seems to be in a permanent state of anomalous warmth. We haven't had a cold Atlantic relative to average in, I can't even remember. And I'm supposed to know this stuff off the top of my head, right? So there's a lot to talk about, a lot happening still behind the scenes, even though the season itself, Sara now being dissipated, is almost over. So thanks for joining me this afternoon. Let's get started and see what we do have out there. First, and this is a good stopping point or starting point or whatever, first stop on the tour, I guess is a good way to put it. The ACE score, we ended up with 161.6, and this can fluctuate in the off season as the National Hurricane Center goes back and analyzes each individual storm on our list here. We ended up with 18 total named storms. Probably could have had a couple more, but the Hurricane Center felt that it was best not to name them for whatever reason. And again, our ACE score, 161, which is considered hyperactive. We did not end up with the 25 named storms that we thought we might have. But you know what? And again, I'll cover this in more detail on the November 30th update. If you took those, maybe there's a couple more, like I said, that the Hurricane Center could have upgraded. They were right on the fence. And then you had that time period in August through parts of September until we got to Helene, really, where there was just very little activity. If that wasn't there, and I know you could do this if game all day long, but that was the difference. We didn't have very many junk storms in the overall scheme of things, and the amount of hurricanes and the amount of major hurricanes was right on the money in terms of what was anticipated this year, and certainly the damage and the loss of life will make the 2024 hurricane season probably one of the top 2 or 3 of all time, especially in terms of the damage and the generational aspects to it, especially from Helene. So this really helps to put everything into perspective. It was a very impactful hurricane season. The mystery of the missing time in there as to what happened when everything was just dead for a bit, that's something, again, I hope to be able to talk to Dr. Klotzbach about. And then just the overall look to the Atlantic basin over the next several years, like where are we going with all of this? And will we get El Niños and La Niñas to moderate things or shut things down or enhance them? I just think it'll be a really topical conversation, and I look forward to sending him a text soon and seeing what his schedule's like. So Sara's gone, and the map is blank, 48 hours, and of course that extends to the next 7 days. So that's great. The satellite animation this afternoon, the remnants of Sara sitting down in here. Too much shear, too much dry air. It had its chance. And I'm going to show you at the end of the tropical section of today's update, because we are going to start focusing on lower 48 weather. And I'll point to it right here. This tab on my browsers from Burg. Yeah, you're going to want to read that. The fallacy of what happened with Sara. And a lot of us fell for it. And he has done a great piece addressing it. All right, so you know where they've got a lot of activity and had it? Frickin' Philippines, man. Like, this is crazy. 1, 2, and these are real satellites. This is not a simulation. There's 3, there's 4. 4 typhoons in just the span of 10 days for the Philippines. If you had that in Florida, for example, people would just be done. They would move. Florida would have 9 people living there, and they would all be hurricane chasers, right? I mean, holy cow. That is really, really remarkable. It really is. So I know Josh Morgan was over there for this last one, and he's posted a couple things on his social media about those encounters, or that encounter that he had. Just amazing, and certainly not good, but wow, that's really incredible. So that's a really cool animation that's available out there. Just remarkable. Luckily, nothing like that for Florida or elsewhere. And I say Florida because that's about the only place that something like that could happen. We came close in 2004 with several landfalls in and around Florida over a 6-week period, but that's a lot different than 10 days, and we can all agree. Now, there's the remnant vorticity signature. You know, rest in peace, shield your eyes, whatever. That's the skeletal remains, almost literally. That's the low-level vorticity anyway, what's left of the foundation of Sara, sitting over the Bay of Campeche. There's our front coming in, and it's just not going to be able to recover. It's, you know, getting towards late November. We're not at peak time of hurricane season, so those things usually don't make a comeback, and we can see that very clearly here over the next several days. Some of that energy, though, will get pulled into the trough, and it could enhance the rain a little bit over here in parts of Florida, where, you know, just a few days ago, let's just rewind the clock, shall we, real quick. Let's go all the way back to the 12Z run on Tuesday of last week, and you'll see what we were all thinking. Yep, and that was 198 hours out. That would be valid this coming Wednesday. Pretty big difference between that and that. How about that? Isn't that amazing? The old GFS, even the Euro, just pooched it. And I laugh because I can. Thank goodness it didn't happen, because that other alternative would have been just terrible on so many levels, really. So that's going to be what we have in reality. And that will bring a few extra enhanced rain showers, that kind of thing. We can see that on the precipitable water, the anomaly here, or humidity, sorry, not an anomaly. But look at all that dry air over on the north side. Just, my goodness. So that little piece of moisture stretched out like taffy will be the final end game there from Sara. All right, so as we go through the next several months, first of all, there's no reason to leave, unsubscribe from the YouTube channel or whatever. We don't go anywhere. On November 30th, turn the lights out, and I'll see you again next June. Not even close. There's all kinds of things to watch in the off season. We'll have the Monday morning video discussion every single Monday that I'm around, live on YouTube. I'm going to expand on that and hopefully do it even better, maybe using StreamYard or something. You know, just always improving what we're doing here at HurricaneTrack. But anyway, that's just an invitation. You know, don't leave, please. Come on, stick around. So one of the reasons to stick around is we're going to be paying attention to this. And this is one of the things I want to talk to Phil about, Dr. Klotzbach. Does this matter much anymore? You know, when is an anomaly not an anomaly anymore? Because we've had this pattern more or less for several years. 2013 it changed, but really the last 10 years, 2014 inclusive, it's basically been warm in the Atlantic Basin, and then it's just a matter of, do we get a warm INSO event here? Is that positive or negative? And that seems to change the overall amounts of named storms and whatnot. But we're still getting these big hurricane seasons in the Atlantic Basin. 15 to 20 named storms is almost the norm the last few years. So are we going to just keep going down that road for the next several years, maybe decade or more? Is there a way to know that? And very importantly, is the Gulf of Mexico continuing to be, will it continue to be the shooting gallery, if you will, for these hurricanes? Because we've hardly had any East Coast activity to speak of. And, you know, you look at how much activity has been in the Gulf since and including 2016, starting with Hermine, all the way through this year, ending with Milton, and there's so many in between. And, you know, we had Raphael in the Gulf. It didn't make landfall, but that was a major hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, for goodness sakes, and in November. And then we came darn close with Sara. You know, we have to admit that was a close call. So there's something happening. Why is it the Gulf? Why is the Gulf getting so much activity? Again, an interesting conversation that I look to have with Dr. Klotzbach. So this matters, and we'll be watching the state of the INSO over here and how all of this evolves. That warm Atlantic relative to average. And one way that we can track it is through things like the Hofmoeller diagrams over here from Dr. Michael Ventress' website, which, by the way, let me get a color here that'll really, I guess black will pop pretty good. Look at that unbelievable wind burst that's coming. That's an easterly wind burst. Wow, that is very significant. As we get into the first part of December, that should really kick that La Nina back into high gear. And that's going to, I guess, matter as we head out towards the end of this year and into early next year. We'll see what this anomaly looks like right here, like mid-December or so. This should strengthen quite a bit because those easterly winds, according to this chart here, are really getting ready to crank up for sure. All right, so here's this article from Tomer. I want you to read it. It's good. Read something. I don't have to serve everything to you. And let me read the first 3 paragraphs, though. And I'm glad he did this little snippet because this is exactly how, myself included, we all fell into this trap. Tomer says, let's say you're a weather forecaster, meteorologist who communicates the latest forecast to the public and has an audience from Florida that follows your updates. That's me. I'm one of those people. You know it's been a rough year for Florida just in the last 2 months. Helene and Milton caused devastation in parts of the state, not to forget mentioning Debbie in August. Just a few days ago, the Keys were missed by the worst of Hurricane Raphael. What I just told you all about, right? Naturally, people will be concerned if a hurricane is mentioned again in the forecast. Now let's say it's November 12th. You check the GFS as you typically do, and it's showing a major hurricane approaching the same part of Florida affected by Milton and Helene. And you already see posts on social saying just that. The GFS saying, major hurricane Sara expected to hit Florida. You have been warned. And you think to yourself, come on, it's just one run of a deterministic model. This is just clickbait. So you're also initially skeptical as you've seen these exact same clickbait posts. And we know who does those. I typically don't, but I did do the one that said it's time to sound the alarms based on the GFS and the Euro. So, maybe guilty as charged. But anyway, we know the ones that just put that stuff out that's just constant 5-alarm fire. Whatever. So on to what Tomer was saying. You're initially skeptical as you've seen these exact same clickbait posts for Hurricane Raphael, which ended up not directly affecting Florida with hurricane conditions. Oh yeah, that was the truth, wasn't it? Very guilty parties out there, not me. Anyway, but you still want to check more data just to know for sure if it's clickbait or not, or just uneducated, right? So you look at the trend in the last 7 runs of the GFS, and to your surprise, every single run shows a hurricane hitting the same region of Florida. Yes, it is still over a week away, but that run-to-run consistency gets you to start thinking this scenario could be, something you take a bit more seriously. You also note how consistent not only the signal for a hurricane is, but also the part of Florida that it hits. And might I add, Tomer mentions the GFS there, the Euro was generally showing the same thing. So he wrote up a great piece about it right there. I will put a link to it in today's update. But look at this graphic. This is the evolution. We were like, uh-oh, a little more, a lot for a few days, and then, not so much. And it's important to learn. And maybe we don't learn. Maybe sometimes the models, what are you going to do? Just say, we're not going to talk about it unless it's 3 days out? That's not practical. We have to plan for stuff and make sure people are paying attention. It's a very interesting subject. It really is. The idea of clickbait, fear-mongering versus messaging, and just trying to make sure people know what could be possible. It's a tough one. It's like when your doctor comes up. I'll just say one more thing, my little tiny soapbox. It would be like, every time you go to the doctor for your yearly checkup, and everybody should be doing it, and they're constantly telling you about if you're out of shape, like I am. I'm not in the best shape. I'm not, come on. Anyway, we could all make improvements, and he's always reminding you of heart attack risk, stroke risk, cancer risk, asks you what you're eating. You're still eating processed foods. You know what I mean? You might just get sick and tired of it. And he's always fear-mongering. Or do you appreciate that the doctor is just telling you the deal? I do. I just went a few weeks ago, and I got to lose about 30, 40 pounds or I'm going to be in big trouble again like I was 6 years ago, right? And, so hitting the gym, eating better, stuff like that. Same thing with the weather and communicating it. When you are out of shape, and you're eating badly and your doctor tells you these 5-alarm fire scenarios, it's for your own good. Now, you can tell him or her, cut it out, and they probably will. I don't know if it's against their Hippocratic oath or anything, but maybe there is a little bit of a responsibility for people like me, like Mike's Weather Page, Tomer, the national outlets, Fox Weather, whomever, to say, look, there is the possibility in the modeling that something could be happening. That's different than every single thumbnail is the end of the world type stuff. I know that's a little hyperbolic, but you know what I mean? Those are always 5-alarm fires, so to speak, and there's no consequences for being wrong. You don't own up to it. I've seen that a lot, where people throw stuff out there, they're completely wrong, and then just whatever. It's like they're making stuff up. Anyway, great article, great write-up from Tomer. Sometimes meteorology is very hard, and this was one of those times. But remember, like my last update said, models are not forecasts. That's the big takeaway. Lower 48 weather time. Nice in the east. We can just divide the country right down the middle. That's pretty close. Pretty nice out west, except for the extreme west coast states. In the western portions of those states, a big cyclone, mid-latitude cyclone, going to be coming in off the Pacific, and that's going to bring the possibility of disruptive, impactful weather. If you live out there, you know the sources to tune into. I'm just making you a little bit aware of it. Strong southerly winds through the Gulf of Mexico these days, recently. See these greens down here? Some coastal flood problems. Not related to Sara in the least. You got that low sitting up here somewhere. I'll just make it up. Something like that. And the strong southerly winds coming in. You bet. That Gulf of Mexico, very sensitive. So you could have some coastal flooding problems down in parts of Louisiana, northeast Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, the typical areas. All right? Looking at the GFS over the next 5 to 7 days, because next week is Thanksgiving and we got a lot of traveling coming. There's those southerly winds, by the way, right there. There's your high sitting over southeast Georgia, South Carolina, and the strong southerly winds feeding into our storm here. Gulf is warmer than average, so yeah, we're getting a lot of heavy rainfall. Everything is connected. It all makes sense. Let's move this out, shall we? 48, 72, 96. Hey, some snow for parts of the Appalachians, all the way up into the lakes regions of New York, downstream from there. A little too warm still for true lake effect snow. That's coming, though. Let me tell you, it's going to be robust because of how warm the lakes are relative to average. Day 5, pretty good storm system coming in to the Pacific Northwest. We love to see all of this. You need the water out there, so this is great to see once again. And then finally, day 6, this is next Sunday. Day 7, a week out. This gets us into travel week. And I just wanted to show you, and this is one case where, I'm showing you far out in time. This is next Tuesday, 192 hours out. Notice what we don't see, and hopefully this sticks. No major weather systems in the lower 48 here, about a week plus a day out. There's just drawing it in for you. That's pretty good. A little bit of storminess out west, but your major airports, LAX looking pretty good. Chicago would be all right. Atlanta down here. Dallas, Denver looking okay. These are approximations, all right. Charlotte, the northeast cities, but that's whatever this is. That's moving out. Bottom line, trying to bring you some good news that maybe, just maybe, Thanksgiving travel week won't be a nightmare for travel. Because it certainly will when families get together and start talking politics. I had to just throw that in there because you know it's coming. You know it's coming. You know what else is coming? And I was very excited to do this with Fox Weather the other day. The world has changed. Nobody's going to be talking about it at dinner and whatever. Oh, did you see what Mark did? But we have now entered the era of showing 360 video on network weather. The first time ever that I'm aware of, and I'm pretty sure of it. Now look, there's a difference in 360 video that is already processed. That you take a 360 cam and you're the editor of it, and then you move it around and you see what you want to see, and then you send that up to a network. That's one thing. But what we did on Fox Weather on Friday was revolutionary, and this is a little screenshot of it. I can't show the video itself, or I'll probably get a YouTube strike or whatever they call it, a copyright deal. even though I work with Fox Weather. It's just the way it goes. So this is it. This is the big thing that I was talking about. I met with Fox Weather on Wednesday. I showed them some examples that I had been working on over the last several years, really. And then it dawned on me, we can take this to air. Just output it from a computer, and they can take it to air. But the biggest thing was, and that's Ian Oliver there, is that he could be the driver of it. Steve Bender, Haley Meyer, anybody up there, Bob Van Dillen, Ari Sarsalari, any of the talent at Fox Weather could do exactly what I'm doing right here. And that is move it around and you be the driver. And that is incredible. This is the coastal storm that impacted the Outer Banks last Thursday, moderate effects. And this was just a demo. This is not some, oh my goodness, did you see that video? It's just I wanted to show them this could really work in a real world situation. So I put the 360 cam on this little beam right here. I got this special little device that lets you just attach it like a vise and set it up and let it run for about 20 minutes or so. And you get these different chunks of video clips from it. And I processed it and sent it up to Fox Weather. And this is what it all looked like. And finally, and this is what Ian was demonstrating on television there live, a house had come apart down in Merlot Beach, which is just up the road up here about a half a mile or so. And pieces of that house were disintegrating into the water. And there is a refrigerator. But here's the nice thing. Look at that. Being able to track it like you're a live camera person doing it yourself. But that's not what it is at all. This is me. And that was Ian. And this is going to be insane. I'm telling you. This will be one of the coolest things that we can add to the weather portfolio of tools, the toolbox, should have just said that, in the last 20 years. And it really will be incredible what they're going to be able to do with it. The different types of weather that I'm going to be able to show immersively like this. You can zoom in. You got to go full screen to zoom in. There we go. You can zoom in and, again, just have immense amount of control. And this puts the talent in the driver's seat. And I like it that you, for example, you can go back, for example, and see stuff again. And just hit the little back button. There's 5 seconds back. It makes it like Madden, NFL, right? When you freeze it, and you can freeze it, and let's zoom in right there and see what everybody, whatever. It's like football. I told him, I said, it's like bringing Fox Sports to Fox Weather. And they can telestrate on it. They'll get all that figured out too, just like I'm doing here. And this is going to be freaking amazing. And we were the first to ever do it last Friday on national TV, national internet, everything. It's everything, everywhere, right? So that's what I was excited about. And look, I've been doing this for a while. This is 4 years ago down in Waveland. I just didn't know what I had. This is Hurricane Zeta in Waveland, Mississippi. Let me drop me out just for a second. We set up a 360 cam down there. This is 4 freaking years ago. I just thought, something that'll be neat in a VR headset like an Oculus or something. Like what utility will this have for TV? How would you ever show that on television? And I figured it out, and I took it to Fox, and now it's happening. So I've been doing this for a while. I just didn't understand what I had. And to that end, I wanted to show you. Look at all these different things that I've got on my YouTube channel. And, feel free to screenshot this and look these titles up. Even if they're unlisted, I don't care. Find them. We have quite a bit. This is hail from Nebraska back in June that's in 360. And this was really neat. This is actually how I figured all this out. I was going back and looking at this hailstorm in my GoPro player. I mean, look at that. There's the supercell. This is what I demonstrated to Fox up in New York City on Wednesday. I showed them this exact thing. And I thought, we could take that to air. And that's how it all started, this year. And yet, like I showed you, I've got stuff going back. Where was the list? Darn it. Several years. Oh, there we go. I got to hit the back button. The most recent is up at the top. And then, even flying through the air. Do I have that queued up? I thought I did. If not, I'll do it now. This is one of our Herbie tests, our weather balloon test. We did that in 360. I just didn't think that anybody would care. You know, like, a couple people might watch it in a VR headset if it'll ever buffer in there. Look at that. That's amazing. And look, I know this has been around for years, and they've got all kinds of cool 360 stuff in Meta, you know, on the Quest. You know, it's not like I invented it, but to use it to cover the weather will be absolutely remarkable. And to think I'd been doing it all along, I just didn't understand how to get it to TV, and now we know. So yeah, feel free to go through that list there and pause the video, and you can search those up, especially if you have a VR headset. Oh my goodness, it is incredible. But it's neat to also be able to bring it to TV, and we'll be able to do it here. We'll do 360 stuff, and I'll show you here just like they're going to do in Fox Weather. So there you go. All right. Thanks for sticking around for today's update. I know I covered a lot and went kind of off the rails a little bit here and there, but yeah, that's what I do. Talking weather with a great community out there. And again, seriously, you know, don't unsubscribe just because we're getting towards the end of hurricane season. Hopefully you subscribe because you had an interest in weather, and you'll stick around because we're going to just keep going and doing other interesting stuff. We would love to have you along for that ride. All right. Later in the week on a Wednesday update, no update tomorrow because there's just not much happening, but I am going to do an update Wednesday. We're just going to talk some technical stuff. 2 major awesome announcements related to Patreon that you absolutely want to make sure you tune in to the video. It'll be an afternoon update like this or whatever. It's not live, but a couple of phenomenal updates from Patreon that are truly going to be game changers, and I can't wait to tell you about that. So that'll be on a special Wednesday update, and we'll keep going towards the end of hurricane season, and we'll get there and be ready for winter weather. All right? Again, thanks for tuning in for today. I am Mark Suttoth from all of us at the HurricaneTrack community. We appreciate your time and attention. I'll talk to you again Wednesday.